What's up guys, Coolsye here. I've got an extra special Halloween video for you all this year. I love Halloween, and I also love The Legend of Zelda. So I figured what better way to celebrate the holiday this year than by combining those two loves into one? Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, Coolsye, you big dumbo, Zelda isn't scary. Well, shut up. For the sake of this video, Zelda is going to be scary and we're all going to pretend that it is.
Got it.
Zelda has a lot of weird creatures, some silly, some awesome, some that shouldn't exist, and perhaps most importantly, at least for the concept of this video, some that are absolutely terrifying. So this Halloween, I'm going to share with you guys my top 10 scariest enemies from The Legend of Zelda. Who knows, maybe you'll share my opinions. I only have one rule for this list, and that's no creepypastas, meaning no Ben drowned. I know Ben technically wasn't an enemy, but still, I know somebody out there is going to mention it, so no creepypastas. Now let's not waste any more time, guys. We've got to dive right into the spooky. Ocarina of Time was the first Zelda game I ever played, and to this day remains my favorite in the series, and is also my favorite video game of all time. The very first dungeon of the game is the Great Deku Tree, and being the very first, it's obviously really easy and doesn't require much skill to actually beat. But also being the first dungeon, it's pretty creepy to just explore. When I first played this dungeon when I was 6, the sheer atmosphere of the first dungeon was enough to scare me, and I was jumping every time I heard a noise. So imagine how I reacted the first time I came into contact with one of these guys. That's right, say whatever you want. The Skulltula is freaking terrifying. At least the first time you encounter one and don't see it coming. These things drop from the ceiling and ambush you. Naturally, if you're not prepared, this can be pretty alarming, but to make matters worse is what the Skulltula is. It's essentially a giant spider with a skull for an abdomen, and even though the design in Ocarina of Time is sort of goofy looking, it's really their appearance in Twilight Princess that gives me the creeps. I'm not kidding, the first time I played Twilight Princess, I ran away from this thing before I fought it. The Skulltula may not be the scariest Zelda enemy, but I know it's made you jump at least once in your life. I like Twilight Princess a lot. The more realistic graphics are a really nice touch, but I gotta say, the scariest thing about Twilight Princess are the Twilight segments. And the scariest thing about those, perhaps, is what happens to certain enemies when they're overtaken by Twilight. We've got these creepy bird thingies, these creepy rat thingies, and of course the Twilight monsters themselves. But what's the scariest, you ask? That's easy. The bugs. You know, the creepy, tiny, scary, flying bugs. Huh. You know, these things aren't really as scary as I remember. I guess I was mistaken. I could take them off the list, I suppose. Silly Coolsye. Did I say I was taking them off the list? I'm sorry, I meant I'm done. I'll finish this list when I'm done throwing up, okay? Okay. In all honesty, the Twilight bloat isn't only scary, it's gross. I'm not a huge fan of bugs in general, but beetles are by far the most disgusting in my opinion. So a giant beetle that looks like that, no. Just no. I don't like it. Good thing it's easy to kill. Otherwise, I'd be stuck here, staring at it. And I don't want that. Nobody wants that. This one's a bit personal. Contrary to popular opinion, I love the Water Temple. It isn't my favorite, but I definitely enjoy playing through it. It has its quirks, but the temple isn't what we're talking about, so I know what you're thinking. Coolsye, why'd you even mention the Water Temple? There's no scary enemies in there. But yes there is. I can't understand why, but for some reason I've always hated shell blades. I don't even know why, couldn't tell ya. Maybe it's the way they menacingly turn around to face you. Maybe it's the way they glare at you for a few seconds. Or at least I assume they're glaring at you if they had a face. Or maybe, just maybe, it's the fact that if you can't kill them within a few seconds, they barrel after you, and even though it's as simple as raising your shield to defend against them, for some reason I always panic. Like I said though, this one is personal, so take it with a grain of salt. This one isn't scary in a normal sense, more so in a, if you saw this in real life, there's more than likely a chance there's a poo in your shorts scary. So on that note, the Iron Knuckle. He's big, he's strong, he's actually really sucky. The Iron Knuckle isn't scary because of his appearance, it's more his presence that scares me. These things are super strong, and one hit is enough to take away 4 hearts. Luckily, they're not very smart and sometimes cut down pillars in the room which release some health. And they're also really slow. In short, they're more intimidating than anything, and I mostly just imagine what meeting one in real life would be like. And the answer is, like sitting on a toilet, but standing up, with no toilet paper, in public. In my opinion, Majora's Mask is quite possibly the scariest Zelda game. It's not because of any particular enemies, it's just more so the atmosphere. Now I'm not going to be edgy and include the entire atmosphere of Majora's Mask as the number 6 entry, but Majora's Mask does have some pretty creepy stuff in it. Most of the enemies in Majora's Mask were just carried over from Ocarina of Time, so why would I even bother mentioning Majora's Mask? I mean, if the enemies are the same, why wouldn't I just talk about Ocarina of Time? Well, there is one enemy in Majora's Mask that isn't in Ocarina of Time, and the creepiest part is, it doesn't even have a real name. Only referred to in-game as them, on the night of the first day at Romani's ranch at 2 AM, these strange aliens will appear, and naturally, it's up to you to stop them. I wouldn't usually be so creeped out by them, because honestly, they're kinda cute. Just look at him, he's a vicious murder machine. But the thing that scares me the most about them isn't so much their appearance, but more their backstory. Or rather, lack thereof. These things are so mysterious, the only other mention of them is only a few in-game hours before they actually show up, and even then there isn't much that's actually explained. And that's probably the scariest thing about them, honestly. They're a mystery. They're not mentioned once again after that, unless you choose to repeat the side quest again. Because it's actually really fun. Honestly, these next guys kinda look funny to me. Okay, I get putting the Skulltula this high on the list is a strange option, so hear me out. The Skulltula itself is not scary. They look stupid, they're really slow, and you can kill them in 2 hits. But the idea of the Skulltula is what scares me. Okay, think about it. Why are there thousands, no, infinite amounts of skeletal children buried beneath Hyrule Field? What happened here? Why do they only attack stragglers who wander off the beaten path? Again, why are there so many of them? When you really think about it, this is one of the creepiest video game mysteries of all. Thousands of skeletal children buried beneath the field. It honestly makes me feel a bit uneasy. But alas, that's all idle speculation. The real reason is probably just because the developers wanted there to be something different to do while wandering the field at night and didn't think much deeper into it than that. But you know, maybe it's just a theory. Ah, Wind Waker, one of the most breathtakingly beautiful Zelda games ever made. The exploration, the adventure, the wind in my hair, the sea at my fingertips. Can such a glorious moment possibly be spoiled, and if so, by what? What dangers could possibly ruin the magnificence of... Oh my god, shoot it! Shoot it, shoot it, shoot it! The giant squids from Wind Waker are freaking terrifying. Go ahead, ask one person, ask anybody who played this game when it first came out and they'll tell you the same thing. These enemies are the absolute definition of horror. Okay, so I'm exaggerating a bit, but they are still pretty scary. Their appearance is a part of it because for a generally cartoony game, they actually look really disturbing. Secondly, the atmosphere. Being a giant ocean doesn't help at all. I mean, imagine this happening to you in real life. Third, it's the way they just appear. I know there are ways to tell when and where they're going to show up, but holy crap, it's not very reassuring to think about. The first time that whirlpool appeared and I saw what came out, I blessed myself and said a prayer. They may not be the scariest enemy in all of Zelda, but I know everybody's been thrown off by them at least once. Twilight Princess can be a pretty scary game, not because it's scary necessarily, but just because of how realistic everything looks. The Arbiter's Grounds is no different when compared to, say, the likes of the Shadow Temple. The Arbiter's Grounds isn't necessarily scarier, it's just more realistic. But the Arbiter's Grounds being more realistic can also mean it's more terrifying to come face to face with some of the enemies that inhabit it. And one such inhabitant is the Poe. No, not that Poe. That Poe isn't even from Twilight Princess. Oh, come on! That Poe, this Poe, these things. Not that other thing, this thing. Seriously, after facing off against these little guys for so long, hearing that part of beating the temple is fighting Poes is sort of a breath of fresh air. But when you actually see them, that's when things get scary. I mean, look at this thing! Look at this thing! They look like freaking Dementors out of Harry Potter! Seriously, I am not okay with this. Get it away from me! You might only have to fight 4 of them, but those are 4 fights that I certainly won't be forgetting anytime soon. Zombies have always scared me, ever since I was a kid. I don't know why, but even when I was little, until very recently actually, I had a very, very irrational fear of zombies. So it stands to reason that zombies in a Zelda game are no different, and with that said, everybody knows where I'm going with this, the Re-Dead. Obviously, my first encounter with these things was Ocarina of Time, and I'll admit, zombies that hump you are pretty scary. Not to mention that noise they make. But the Re-Deads from Wind Waker are a different story altogether. Please no. I don't know. I don't even know what compelled them. Who told them to do this? Who finalized this design? Who looked at this and said, yeah, that won't make children bleed out of their eyes from crying as they scream in fear? What is this thing? Why is this thing? I want my money back! You know what? I actually don't want my money back because I love this game. But seriously, what is this thing? It would be a crime to say that the first time I encountered the Re-Deads in Wind Waker that my first instinct was to run away. I almost punched a hole in my television. These things seriously freaked me out as a kid. Nowadays, I still find them pretty creepy, and their design is definitely the stuff of nightmares. But honestly, the noise they make is what really sets the bar high. The power of light compels thee, monster! Be gone! Be gone! Oh my god, it's eating me! Ah, it's eating me! Please tell me you saw this coming from the very beginning of this video. The #1 scariest enemy in Zelda is the Dead Hand. I mean, seriously, the entire Shadow Temple as a whole has nothing on this guy alone. The way he looks, the way he walks, the way his room looks. I know I made jests and jokes about the other enemies on this list, but the Dead Hand is genuinely terrifying. The Dead Hand himself is scarier than most horror game enemies. Call me crazy, but he'd have been a much better final boss for the Shadow Temple than Bongo Bongo. Creepy, whatever the Dead Hand is, definitely beats giant drumming flower any day. Just saying. The Dead Hand is by far the scariest enemy in The Legend of Zelda, but I'd go so far as to say one of the scariest enemies in gaming as a whole. I'd say that's just me, but I have a good feeling I'm not alone on that. Especially since this guy consistently gets rated the scariest thing to come from Zelda as a whole. If you're not scared of the Dead Hand, you should be proud of yourself, because this thing caused an entire generation of Zelda fans to change their underwear on many an occasion. Happy Halloween, guys! It's been a long time coming, but I finally did this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Do Do you think I missed any particularly scary enemies? If you liked this video and you want to see more scary, you should check out Cyber and Brandon's horror channel. He does scarier things a lot more often than I do. It's pretty crazy. No lie. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time, peace out.